It's an angry sea, but there is no doubt that the lighthouse will keep shining out to warn the lonely sailor. And lightning strikes and the wind cuts cold through the sailor's bones to the sailor's soul, till there's nothing left that he can hold except the roaring ocean. But I am ready for the storm. Yes, already I'm ready for the storm. I'm ready for the storm. Give me mercy for my dreams, 'cause every confrontation seems to tell me what it really means to be this lonely sailor. But when the sky begins to clear and the sun melts away my fear, I will cry a silent weary tear at those that need to love me. And I am ready for the storm. Yes, already I'm ready for the storm. I'm ready for the storm. Distance, it is no real friend, and time will
We
take
have
its
is in the
time.
ballot box. When you go right to Austin, I've sent money to senators and money to representatives, and gets right down to the closing of the deal, and what comes in, the big money, you know? And the boxes above the Senate and House seat are called the owner's boxes. They don't own this state, only if we let them do it with money where we can overrule them with the vote. But we have to mean business, and we make a showing in Austin when those committees take place. The committee that you should be looking for in property taxation is committee by Otto in the House and by Tommy Williams in the Senate. Otto's committee is moving around the state. They were in McAllen on Tuesday. They'll be around in San Antonio. They'll be also in Austin, and of course they'll be in Harris County too. Tanya, are you ready? Let's kick it off.
Give her a hand. I started.
My name is Tanya Benson. I would like to welcome you to this meeting. Before we start, I would like to tell you what the spirit of this meeting is about. It's about the love of Fredericksburg and Gillespie County that we all share, and also preserving the integrity of America. My only purpose is truth for all people and for the better good of our citizens here in Fredericksburg. I love Fredericksburg, and I'm devoted to its well-being and always will be. I also want to thank those big-hearted people that helped put this together and get the word out to all of you folks. I came here tonight because I want to be more informed about the property appraisal process. Our guest speaker says that there are two kinds of taxation: the kind for the uninformed and the kind for the informed. I have learned from other citizens how what I choose to do or not to do with regard to addressing my property appraisal not only affects me, but it affects my neighbors and ultimately the entire community. If our neighbor is struggling or in trouble here, then so are we. This isn't just about me or any single individual. As a community, it is our responsibility to pay attention, inform ourselves, and be mindful of how we impact each other. I have learned that it is important to understand the difference between the appraisal value and the tax rate. It is important to understand that because a property owner has an exemption, such as ag, or the school tax rate is frozen, that this does not prevent unreasonable increases in the appraised value of their property. I would like to ask our group here, by a show of hands, how many of you received an increase in your property appraisal value from 10 to 20% over last year? Okay. How about some 20 to 30% increase? 30 to 40%. 40 to 50%. 50 to 60%.
Oh my God.
60 to 70%. 70 to 80%. 80 to 90%. Don't see a hand. 90 to 100% over last year. Okay. All right. There are some blank index cards that a few of the people here will be passing out if you would like to write down a question. Our guest speaker wants you to know that he expects and will invite questions. He will also remain following the meeting to answer any questions and stay as long as necessary to do so. Our goal with our group meeting is to raise awareness and understanding about the system under which the appraisal district operates, and that it takes its direction directly from our state legislature. Also, to provide information on how you can address your appraisal locally. Our speaker has been an advocate for fair and equitable appraisal since 1994. He is a former coach with Kincaid School from 1954 to 1990. Kincaid is the oldest private school in Houston, Texas. He has coached 2 governors and 1 president. He came to Kincaid from Rice University, where he played football. In the 1954 game between Rice and Texas, our guest caught the pass that beat Texas. He and his team went on to play Alabama in the Cotton Bowl that year, the time that Bart Starr was quarterback for Alabama. That was his final game. Following his coaching career, he founded Harris County Appraisal District Taxpayers for Equal Appraisal. His organization is for fair and equitable property appraisals so that all property is valued and taxed equally. He has worked tirelessly since 1994 as an advocate for fair property appraisals. Please welcome Coach Dan Hart.
Do I have you arranged to keep my hat on? Position? Yeah? All right. Listen, we have to get going here, and the way we get going, the hardest part of any job is getting started. First of all, we have to join hands. And the question is, how many hands does it take to catch a football pass in a game? 22. 22. All right, and what lessons does that teach us? Teamwork. That is very important. Luckily, I didn't offer a $50 bill on that. We need teamwork. Come on up, David. Taylor, come on up here. Do we have anybody representing? I visited the Fredericksburg ISD. Is any representative from them here today? How about your Mr. Fair? Fair is here. Fair, come on up here. The ISD. All right. Coach Hart. How you doing, Wayne?
Very popular, sir.
Really? And how you doing? Nice to see you. Okay, what I think we most importantly will do, we've got a lot of information laid out for us, but the old saying at the committee, is that the judges and everybody gets to ask the questions and answer them first. I'd like to take 3 questions of a general nature that might be answered by these gentlemen here, one of them up here, to engage and begin to build teamwork in solving our problems. Let's have 3 questions of a general nature about property appraisal, something you question. Anybody? Okay. Oh, there's one.
How often are properties actually gone out, looked at, and appraised?
How often are they checking the individual characteristics? David, take off on that one.
We go out on a kind of rotating basis, but our reappraisals are done anytime that there's any kind of change to the property. Building permits, septic permits, things like that, or we see activity on the property as we're driving across the county. But the reappraisal is actually done every year, even though it may not be physically on site.
Okay. Here is a Coach Hart suggestion that perhaps has been heard before. I know David has heard me talk about it. Let's have, first of all, one home appraisal manual uniform across this state. We're shifting money for school financing based upon that factor of how homes are appraised. We need a unified, consistent home appraisal manual. The second thing is we can't fly over these properties with a plane and get the characteristics right. And we can't drive by taking pictures in the front. What we need to do is use our head to save money, and that can be done by using a self-reporting form where you as homeowners can report to the district the characteristics. Naturally, you're going to have to back them up with pictures, documentation. But that in itself, getting a unified manual and then a self-reporting form will make a real difference. We got 2 more questions. Hey, speak up back.
Do you need to get the property owner's permission to come in and prowl the property? I mean, they have prowled, but not with permission. Is that legal?
We I'll tell you a little bit of background first.
Well, wait, first, is it legal or not?
Yes, it is legal unless it is posted with a no trespassing sign. And we do, the first thing we do is go up to the door, knock on the door, and ask for permission. And if no one is there, and there is no trespassing sign, we do some business. But we do have 33,000 properties that we have to see, and we try our best on that. But if you tell us that you want permission ahead of time, or you want to be on the property, we do code your account so that we will make prior arrangements with you.
Well, they have come over the Christmas holidays when we weren't at home.
Well, we work around that quite a bit.
What I say is that there are always going to be snafus and problems about the procedure. One of the things we're currently involved with, we're having 2 lawsuits that are against the Harris County Appraisal District on issues dealing with this part of your rights. There is such a thing as a House Bill 201. Has anybody ever heard that here before? House Bill 201 was a measure that was passed years ago, and it is not put on the forms that you see. The comptroller in this little green book that most of you have in front of you, there is a slight statement to the fact that you have the right to get all of the information, data, formulas, everything the district is going to use against you 14 days in advance in your hearing. But in actuality, you must write that in, put it in writing, and put that request to the district. And so those things are what you need to do to protect your rights at the hearing. This idea of them flying on, you don't have any planes flying around here or anything like that. We have that all over Houston. Okay, we got room. There's a good one.
A question you just brought up, or I thought it was you answer that. If you put it in writing, do they give you the same pictures they're going to use, the same schematics, diagrams, everything, or do they just say we did this house, this appraisal, that land, this appraisal?
They are required to present every bit of evidence that they're going to submit at your hearing. And if that does take place and they add extra, what you need to do, you need to take that information when you get it and you need to put it in a file. And usually what I do with Harris County, I make them sign 109 pages for this file, whatever the number is, and then take it to the ARB person and show them this is that's all the evidence the district can introduce. Yes.
So is that different than what's listed on the computer when you go through and expand everything?
Yes, and that's another important issue that you people may be facing. You don't have paperless appraisal here yet, do you, like Dallas? What they're planning for you is what they call paperless appraisal, where the district will have a computer and will have a keyboard, and you're sitting there trying to figure out how to battle it, because they're throwing up on the wall a screen, lots of pictures and lots of data so fast you can't do it. Our solution for that we're proposing to the House and Senate committee is to require the district to put a keyboard on the taxpayer side. And when the keyboard is being used by the taxpayer, a district cannot use it. They have to be listening. Secondly, we're requiring that a party who feels like he's a dumb football coach will say to the district, no, we're not going to allow you to use the computers on us. You're going to have to go back to paper appraisal. Or at the very least, they're going to have to provide classes so you can become familiar with the way the system operates. Okay, any more?
How does the appraisal district arrive at the median value for property?
Are you referring to what's called the property value study? That is a study that George Bush signed when House Bill 3211. It was to ensure that property was handled equal and uniform as far as giving the money to the taxing units. But the equality of the taking the money has not been there.
I guess that's not what I'm
now,
talking about. How does the appraisal district arrive at
the average assessed value that's published in the paper?
The average assessed
every year when the tax entity sets their tax rate, they have to publish what the average home value is compared to last year, and you'll see that as an advertisement in the newspaper. That number is taking, if it's in the city or if it's in the school district, it's taking all residential property and the overall value of those properties and dividing them by the number of houses in that entity, and that gives you the average. And that average changes every year, but it's taking all of single family or taking all of our averages or multifamily. We break all the properties into different categories: commercial, industrial type properties.
For a ranch property, is the process then that smaller properties are lumped together with larger properties and you get the average that way? And does that result in an upward bias in the numbers?
No. The farm and ranch properties are broken out on just the home site. So if you have 300 acres and you have a half-acre home site, that value is what you can calculate that average.
Okay, I guess I'm not talking about, for me, myself, I'm not interested in the home side value. I'm interested in the ranch land value.
Right.
So if there are, in a county, 2,000 small properties, and they're lumped together with 1,000 larger properties that sell for less per acre, then there's an upward bias in the numbers.
Well, I guess I'm not understanding your question exactly, because the average home value that's published in the paper. Right. Okay. But the properties, when we appraise ranchland property, we do look at acreage. A 500-acre tract is appraised differently than a 10-acre tract. Does that help you?
Are those all compared to 500-acre tracts? Or is there?
We actually
or is every land parcel thrown together, and that's how you get your numbers?
No, that's not how it's put together. We look at the effective age of the size of the ranch property. You may have 5 different accounts, but you may only have 5 acres because they fall in different abstracts and surveys. We look at it as being a 5-acre tract. And so We look at our sales information on properties up to 10 acres, up to 50 acres, up to 100 acres, up to 300 acres, and we build appraisal schedules based on there. So we appraise a 50-acre or less property or a 75-acre or less property. It's categorized by size.
We've had a request that when the people speak, we're sorry we don't have a mic for you, but speak as loud as you can. Can you give us a question?
Okay, you're talking about the land acreage on the situation. Does it count that the neighbor's got a cleared off pasture and mine's natural pasture? Does that make a difference? Last year I told you what.
It does on agricultural value, but it does not on the market value.
Why not on market value?
Years ago, in appraising the market value of ranch land property, there was a pretty significant difference in the buyers of property wanting to buy field land, orchard land, or native pasture land. And over the last 10 years, the number of buyers coming in have not been paying that much attention or much price difference between native pasture and open land.
What about irrigation?
And also, well, irrigation, that goes under agriculture, under the ag value.
Okay, I know, David,
You got to go to that important family meeting. We appreciate you taking time. Thank you very
Y'all
much.
learn a lot.
We'll see you in the morning. Okay, let's go back to 101 protest. What is House Bill 201? What rights does that give you? That gives you the rights to all data and all information that's going to be presented in your hearing, and they can add nothing else. You have the right to be there and to present evidence as long as it's not repetitious. You can present all the evidence that you want to at a hearing. There is no such thing as an automatic time limit that sometimes occurs. The ARB people, when they're talking about the decisions and the conferences they're making, they should be speaking loud enough so that everyone can hear that decision. What you have to do, you have to go out and search that economy and search the sales that are occurring in your neighborhood. And you have to find the sales that are not selected sometimes to represent what properties they're putting, how they're putting the values on. Yes.
How far back can they go on sales?
What they agree to do, they're governed by what's called the International Association of Assessing Officers Red Book. This is a point that is very critical, and you can help with this point. This is the official General Appraisal Manual of the state of Texas, but there is an organization called Property Tax Education Coalition that goes and has appointed a much smaller book, the Green Book, as the one to write the courses from. The education of the appraisers of this state goes under the Board of Property Tax Examiners in those courses. What they're doing to us, they're writing courses that the appraisers use that do not have all of the requirements, basically the equity requirements. This PTAC organization, we have filed a lawsuit against we haven't filed a lawsuit yet. We're thinking about it against the Texas Association of Appraisal Districts. Beverly Woolley has given the Attorney General a request to open the records for that association because they are laundering the money, taking our tax dollars, sending them to Austin, and then the course writers and the people teaching the wrong material or incomplete material to our people. That's where the trouble is coming up. So we need help in that area, and that's one thing we can help a lot with. The actual way that we want to do it, or I suggest to you, the way we want to do the surgery, cutting the cancer out on the table, is this. We need to separate the Appraisal Review Board from the Appraisal District Board of Directors by a method which I would say is very common right now. The Land Commissioner, Jerry Patterson, a good friend of mine, we're trying to get him to go for the idea of the Land Commission establishing in the small counties 3-member boards, 5 in the medium, 7 in the large counties that are called Taxpayer Rights Appeal Boards. They will take over the job of selecting the ARB members, training them. The training will have to be balanced between the taxing units and the taxpayers. And no training will take place without both parties present. But the very important rule that we must have in there, in Section 4301 of the tax code, the taxing units have the rights right now to reach into your pockets, take money from your pockets, and to sue the appraisal district and the ARB to make them follow the law. We, the taxpayers, need that same right. And this appeals board that I'm talking about could either be done through the land office or the governor of the state of Texas has a very well set up mechanism to make appointments. You could select it that way. But once you submit a complaint to them, like if you do it now and you have a complaint, you talk to the governor, you talk to the property tax division, and they all say, well, somebody else is supposed to do that, and that's not my job. But what we need to do is have a board that says that you have a valid complaint, a violation of law, procedure, comptroller's rules, and regulations. Once that is established, then the Attorney General takes taxpayer funds and they sue that district and get that right. What's happening in our situation across the state right now, if a taxpayer goes and makes a suit on an issue and it's about to set precedent across the state, they'll usually get a call from my chief appraiser, Jim Robinson, who is all over the state. And he'll say, Joe, I want you to give that taxpayer anything you want so that we will not have precedent set. So that's the scenario. We need transparency in all appraisal districts. We need a library. We need to have access to exactly how they do the formulas for ranch land, how they do it for ag, how they do it for timber and everything. But most of all, we as homeowners don't have any chance right now. We don't have any manuals to work with. How many people in here have ever been to Austin and gone to a committee meeting and learned how to make your wishes known to that committee? Has anybody been to Austin?
All the time.
Oh
yeah, for school.
Right. What we have, and this is not a reflection on school districts, but they have extremely powerful lobby groups because they're well organized. And they'll select a certain person, a senator or representative, and there may be 5 or 6 superintendents that will be assigned to that person. And that's what we taxpayers must do. We must start paying attention to when they're meeting and force them to bring meetings to us, which they will do on occasion. Okay. Any more questions before we go on? Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
I just have one. If you've been ag exempt for 25 years, and they just tell you all of a sudden you're not anymore, and the operation hasn't changed a bit, I mean, is that normal or is that abnormal?
That's certainly, under those circumstances you're given here, that's not normal. They would continue that ag exemption. Now, what it is the ability, again, to interpret the law in different counties different ways. We need to build into our tax structure a unified home appraisal manual, and we need to treat everybody the same way across the state. That's a very important factor. Yes, ma'am.
I had my home here since 1980, and while I rented it for 12 years, the taxes didn't go up, but they have gone up consistently every year. Last year it went up again, although I had no improvements myself. You know, they said, well, because everybody around you's property went up. I mean, I don't see why that has anything to do with me. The amount that I paid was the same as it was the year before, but they raised the level of the tax basis. And now they've done it again by about another $12,000.
We're in this mass appraisal system that's described by one of the chief appraisers of Harris County. It's a propensity for mass error, and that's what we need to overcome. We have to have a unified manual for every county. We then have to have a self-reporting form to get the characteristics right. You can take a group of homes and they may be all just like cookie-cutter homes, built the same way. And within a year, after different people move into the home, the characteristics change. So getting those characteristics down is important. 2301 of the Property Tax Code says that the chief appraisers shall use the individual characteristics on your property. But it's your job to get those things to them and make sure that they understand them and they're backed up with evidence. How about arbitration? Does anybody understand arbitration? Well, anybody? Not too many, I don't think. That arbitration was put in as just a short of bone, as several of the lawyers told me. Arbitration applies anything under $1 million, and it goes into a system that has proven totally ineffective. There are 9 reasons why you can protest your property, but only one of them can go to arbitration, market value. And unequal appraisal cannot go there, so the system on arbitration needs to be changed. Has anybody ever heard of small claims court tax appeal? Heard of that? We push that. Go ahead, you got a question?
I took that to arbitration. I got a property up in Elsford. I had an old beat up.
Speak up.
Low cap.
Loud.
Speak louder.
And anyway, this thing was absolutely worthless. And the appraiser came out and looked at it and backed the number off a whole bunch. Then it went down, and then they looked at it at the office, and they increased it back up to $54,000. Now, this is a structure that was totally rotten, logs missing out of it, no doors on it, etc. They claimed it was living. Everybody laughed.
No, you're not by yourself.
So, anyway, I went down there, and with a straight face, the board said, well, we think it's worth $54,000. I looked at the board, and I said, gee, I'm feeling really generous. The first $20,000 you can have it. Come get it. Silence from the board. Didn't want it. I tore it down, burned it. I guess the salvage value on the thing, I think I paid $35. Put a new building up in its place. But the one who looked at it knew it was not worth it. The picture showed it was not worth it. But the board refused to do anything about it. And they did send me a nice letter saying that if I wish to challenge their decision for only $500 per complaint, I could put it before the county judge. I said, this is stacked dead. Why bother?
Well, arbitration has certainly not been very successful, and they're thinking about doing something. The one thing they should do is put small claims court tax appeal back on the burner. We had it out of the Texas House. We thought we had it through the Senate. But that would enable you to get a jury in your case just like the big boys do. We've got all kinds of situations where special tax treatment has been given to big people with big money. What about it? Yeah, the question is.
I have a question. I tried to protest my taxes last year and got nowhere, and really kind of felt like I was totally out of place, and I knew what I was talking about, but they didn't seem to think I did. Did you suggest that someone could get further if they actually hired somebody? I mean, a hired gun versus a layman trying to go in there and fight for yourself.
Well, there's certainly this aspect which the House and Senate is working on. There is too much connection between employees of appraisal districts who go for a little while and become acquainted, and then they go out as tax consultants. The opposite is also true. There are certain people who've never been employed by the district that are very capable and understand the language. But I say to each and every one of you, it becomes easier every time that you go. And you'll find that if you have the same piece of property that you're going on every year, that it becomes repetitious, and a lot of the material that you prepared the year before is still applicable. And of course, in Harris County, we're having probably near 400,000 protests this year. The protests are growing very rapidly, and it should grow all over the state. There is a tremendous feeling among the representatives and the senators that something has to be done. Now, the booklet in front of you, turning to something dealing with school financing.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
On residential property, do they deal strictly with square footage, or do they deal with number of bathrooms? If one house has a fireplace, one house has an outbuilding, one house has a larger lot, one house has a smaller lot?
That's right to point. It's on point of what I'm trying to make.
Okay.
We have to have a consistent statewide manual. If they're doing one thing in this county and doing something else about the same situation over here, that creates inequity. And we're shifting money around on school funding, so that's what we have to have. We have to have a unified manual, and then we have to get the characteristics right of your property. But you can force them on that before they get a unified manual. I don't know how many times that we've been up to the comptroller talking about that, but you still have the right in section 2301 of the tax code to show. It says, however, if a property owner shows the district that these characteristics are their individual characteristics, the district must use them. And you have to take them sometimes to that situation. You got to force it.
Follow-up question is, what if they don't? Because I protested, and I did the same thing too as well, and I brought up the difference in my property compared to my neighbor's property. And what they're doing is taking smaller homes with the lot size, taking the square footage, and taking it my home as a larger, because mine was worth a whole heck of a lot more.
This is the exact problem that we're trying to work on, where we're trying to get some board that has the right to sue them when they don't follow procedure. There's a whole section in what's called use path, section 6 there, standard 6, that talks about mass appraisal. There are many, many factors that they do not follow. We need to get these followed. Now, your recourse at the present time is to go to state district court, which generally for small taxpayers is not worth it. It's too much, for lawyers to get in there. But if we had small claims court, or we're able to put in this taxpayer rights board that you could contact and say we're not following the law, then they'll sue for you.
I'm at the point where the district court thing sounds like a plausible solution. What would something like that cost?
Depends on the area and the attorneys you get and so on. Now, well over a large percentage of those cases are settled before they go to trial.
Because why?
Because the district realizes if they go and take this to finalization, it might set precedent. And so they don't want that to happen in a lot of instances. So they'll give the taxpayer whatever he wants to settle that individual case to keep it from spreading the cost.
And then 2 years later, he has the same problem.
2 years later, he has the same problem. If they recognize you as a fighter and somebody who will stand up, I recommend that you think about doing that, because I think you'll eventually give up on it. Yes.
But as it stands, the owner has still put out the money for the lawyer and the court and everything else. That's money out of his pocket. He's not going to be rebated that amount.
That's why we're trying, at least our effort is to establish this Taxpayer Rights Appeal Board that you can go to, and once you certify you have a claim, a valid violation of law, then they sue for you. Yes.
The local guys came out and measured my porch. My house is a rectangle, I have a porch on the front, and they measured my house from the porch to the back of the house. I thought porches weren't.
They are not living space, no. They should be remeasured, and I think what you should do is to realize that the chief appraiser has tremendous authority in various sections of the tax code to initiate remedies. And I think, as I talked to David early this morning, I made an illustration I think is very, very important to this group. There is a man, Jim Robinson, who's chief appraiser of Harris County. And Ken Graber, the chief appraiser that preceded him at Harris County, was testifying in Austin at a committee. And he turned and says, that man, Jim Robinson there, he is the second most powerful man in Harris County. That really wasn't what he was saying. He's saying that he is the most feared man in Harris County. And that situation is wrong. And as long as we let it continue on, it will continue on. But what I say is you need to challenge it. And Mr. Robinson knows that he's under challenge. So we have, there's another agency that you ought to understand. Let's bring that in. The Board of Tax Professional Examiners. Does anybody know what they do? Anybody ever heard of it? Never heard of it. They are the sole agency in the state of Texas that's charged with the responsibility of overseeing the ethical and the legal conduct of appraisers. They license appraisers, they license tax assessor collectors in this area. They have a way that you can file a complaint, and they have a number of rules that the people that are registered appraisers have to follow. So you, the people, have a way of bringing some pressure to bear on people making follow the rules.
You have a phone number or anything for that?
The Board of Tax Professional Examiners, I'm liable to have for you right here one of their complaint forms. Here it is, young lady. And it's available online also. And if you need any help, Betty and I have been after them since the 28th of November. We filed on Jim Robinson, chief appraiser of Harris County, because his land over 19 years went up a total of $5,060 in Harris County. His total increase in his land and house, which is 2 blocks from Champions Golf Course, 4,500 square feet, 3-car garage, swimming pool, went up $96,344 in 19 years. One of my close friends, Eric Kaposta's house, is a teardown. It was $1,000 last year, went to $87,000 this year. We're protesting that coming up soon. So if that, hey, there's a good hand. Stand up and give us a loud voice.
Well, I just wanted, you made reference to the website for the Board of Tax Professional Examiners. Do you have that website address? Can you vocalize it so we can take notes?
I believe we're going to have it on this application here.
Okay, second question. Do you have more copies to hand out to those of us who came late and didn't get one?
Of these here, I had 2 or 3 around, but I didn't know exactly how many were coming. I'll tell you what you can do. You look up the, well, here's 2 here. There's one. Where did we get this? Yeah. Oh, here we go. But they don't have the website on here. The phone number you can get them is 512-305-7300.
Does a person answer that?
This is an unusual agency. They are so underfunded that they don't even have an automatic answering system.
Maybe that is the answer to our problem.
We have too many people that have those automatic out of the office replies, and HCAT has a game down there called the 980 plan, where they work a little extra hours, and they're off on Mondays and Fridays. And it is a fiasco. Yes.
What's the latest with Robin Hood and its legality?
Well, of course, Robin Hood is a situation that's been tossed around, like a football for a long, long time. And my estimation, what's happening presently that affects us most of all, the appraisal districts are after the comptroller on the property value study and trying to get that handled in another way. That may be much better for taxpayers if it does go the other way, where the property value study is done more to check the work of the appraisers. Right now it's focused on practically the dispensing of the money to the schools. And initially, the purpose of the property value study was equity on the burden of taxation on the taxpayers. So they've gone off astray on that. As you see there, how many have turned to this We the People and have seen that diagram in there about that property value study? Go down, I think it's the second page. Kind of take a peek at that and let's think through that. First of all, for a ratio study to be valid, every property in the universe has to have an equal chance of being on the study. You can't just have sale price being on. What they've done over the years, they've gone to a position of using a known sale price, tacking it on retrospectively to a price of a property that may or may not be correct for that property, but it certainly has no relation to the other 90% of non-selling properties. In the diagram you see there, the medium to your left is way away from the red line 100. In the Texas Constitution, Article 8, Section 20 says that no property of any kind shall be taxed over 100% of value. Now we're working on an AG's opinion coming out of Land Commissioner Patterson. He has the right to request one as to whether that's constitutional. But what happens as the median is pushed further closer to the red line, that increase of people that are over the 100% of the red line are taxed unconstitutional. There is another constitutional issue that is coming to the foresight. That is the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution calls for any tax that is a direct tax, meaning you cannot avoid it. If you avoid this tax, you lose your home. So it says it has to be done on the basis of census or enumeration, so that the tax is not based on how big your home is or how small it is. It's an interesting question. There are several states right now, mainly Ohio and a couple more, that are looking into that issue. I spoke directly to Attorney General Abbott the weekend we saw him in Houston there about this issue. So maybe something might be done on that area. What other things have we gone through there? Any of those? What about the property rights, remedies, and responsibilities booklet? How many of you have seen one or had one to take home before? We've got plenty of them passed around. Those are important books, and particularly in this county, you're blessed by the fact that this county does not have a separate ARB manual. They go by the state manual. Write this telephone number down, 1-800-252-9121. Now they have people on staff that are willing to help you and to answer individual questions. Connie Rose, Dennis Hart, several other people that will help you do that. Secondly, they will help provide these pamphlets to you. And you can see on the comptroller's website, when you click on to Texas Comptroller, click on taxes up on the top, and then when you scroll down here on the right, when it comes up and go to property taxes. When you open up on property taxes, you will see all sorts of information around. Well, another factor that we need to push to help ourselves and help all Texans is in this booklet here. This is a booklet put out by the comptroller that gives their interpretation of what the new laws mean to our taxpayers. The thing that I wrote her a letter on was the statement she makes here, that the legal interpretations for the new laws, guess who has to make them? The 253. You know, Randall Potter is the same district, 253 appraisal districts, and some of them, like Harris County, may have 4 or 5 lawyers, and those lawyers have to interpret the rules, along with, as she says here, the actual taxing units, which are about 4,000 plus here in Texas. So that's our problem. We need to make the Attorney General the source of our legal opinion results. Well, yeah.
I don't know if these people know, but you can pay your taxes in 4 different increments.
Sure they can, and you can avoid your taxes. Did you know that? Let me make that clear to you, because if you want to make some money, and I know maybe the schools may not like this, but anyway, look in the tax code, and by the way, they promised me that the new tax code is going to come out pretty soon. Of course, this is from 2006. But in Chapter 33, there is a provision there where you can simply defer your taxes entirely on your homestead. And you can then take those monies. Usually the procedure is to invest those in a second-to-die life insurance policy. And what will happen, you will have more, because the whole situation changes on your taxes. It's no longer this excessive penalty and interest situation. It's simple 8% interest on your taxes each year that accumulate. And your heirs will probably have more than enough money to pay off the taxes and have the property in their hands. It's called the Texas Tax Back Program. It's something that you really, when you turn 65, you're eligible for it. And you can do some good with that. Yes?
I'm just curious about, y'all mentioned Robin Hood earlier, and I think our school is listed as a low-income school because of our per capita income in town, but because of our high property values, we have a lot of money coming into the school that we can't even use for our own school. How come it's not a per capita income thing, it's a property value thing?
The legislature writes the laws, and the way they put them together causes certain things. Lots of times they'll do something, it'll cause something else. So again, they're certainly thinking about that. I've heard comments in the committee meetings from both House and the Senate. But does this district send money away?
Oh, yeah. We've been having discussions for several years with Senator Frazier, who's our senator for this district, because we're property wealthy, like you mentioned, but income poor. We're under the state average on earned income, but way above the state average on property value. And there's only a few districts like that, because we're that way because of houses and residential, not because of industry. We don't have any big refinery plants here or anything like that. So Senator Frazier is trying to work with us where we would pay that back to the state only up to a certain level, and we would get to keep what's over that, and it would affect school districts like us
Eaton School District, which is Westlake, Highland Park, a few other districts that are property wealthy. And so all of our money's going back just cause of home. So the individual homeowners are the ones with the burden of paying the taxes, whereas in Houston, you have a lot of industries down there where they ship goods all over the world and they get money in, and the individual homeowners are not, I'm sure they're still paying a lot of taxes, but not like here where all the burden is on the individual homeowner. So anyway, so we've been working with that, and but you know how it is working down there.
Tough. We brought out the little red wagon on them this year with the tinkers on the front of it to make noise going down there. And then Senator Williams called me the other day. He says, "Coach, you're not coming to my hearing with that hangman's noose, are you?" That was after Fred Hill of the House Committee. Fred announced that he was going to have these committee meetings, and then he proceeded to close them to the public, and only friends of Fred could come testify. And we've got this push with the idea of having, if a committee falls below 50% on the dais, then that should pause that committee, because what happens, the taxpayers that take time to go there and be there, they're last in line, and everybody's gone and they're paying attention. Okay, I really don't know if we have any more questions, or, yes?
Does the state tell the appraisal district a certain percentage that they have to raise the value?
The state does not do that. It's a law that is called House Bill 3211 that was put in years ago, about 1998 or 97. It says that both sold and unsold property shall be appraised alike. And what causes that is the fact that in some districts, like in McClendon County, we had a situation where the property was appraised down at about 70 or 65% of value. And McClendon was appearing to be at 100%. So people were sending money to them. The school formula for funding is one thing that they're working on. They're trying to figure out what to do. Yeah. Oh man, it's not living area, no. Yeah.
Mr. Hart, I'm in the real estate industry, so I'm not just speaking for myself. I think I can speak for everybody in the room by saying that our main problem right now is just our appraisals are above market value. I've got several properties for sale that I've been trying to sell for 6 months that are less than the appraised value this year. So really my question would be, as a collective group, what would you recommend us do?
Well, the thing that has to occur, you have to provide a preponderance of evidence to the district, and that can be done from a unified standpoint. Sometimes that's the way to approach them. I would say, if what you're describing to me is the condition here, then a unified approach by a respected group of appraisers, yourself and other people, and go and see the appraisal district about it and have them explain it.
We were actually doing the time values this year. The state came in an audit and said we were under market value. We had the appraisal district had to file on, and they won their case. And then the state was actually saying we were way under the 95% threshold.
So y'all had the hearing and you finally won.
We won it, finally won. They were using sales that took place in October, although the state was. Although, the values are set on January 1. So they were using sales 10 months later to come up with their value. It's the same, the state comes in and audits. The state comes in and audits what the appraisal district does. Like you were talking about that a while ago, they just come in and they take a sampling, and that's that sheet on your second page there, right? Where they're trying to get 100% of the market value. And what happens is the appraisal district on average is under 95%, then the state comes in and takes money away primarily from the school. So they're saying we're under appraising property. And so this year they did that. They said we were under appraising property. The state, the comptroller's office. And so David Ayler had to go fight that, and he won, luckily, or we'd been sending more money to the state this year for our school. So how they come up and do their audits, you may know how they do their audits when they come in. We haven't figured it out.
Well, that's a very, very difficult question to answer, how they do their audits. They have regular people that go into the field, and they become familiar with certain situations, and it's a matter of their personal interpretation. And I can assure you that the committees are very much concerned. The Otto committee really took the director of the property tax division to task at the meeting. That's another thing that you can do. How many people know how to get it on Texas legislature online? That's something that you really ought to think about. Put in your search Texas legislature online. Then you can go to the Senate and House and go to the committee, and there you will be able to hear the actual testimony. In some cases, you will be able to see the testimony and who's there. And you'll begin to feel the situation. It's the same group that comes each time. It's the lobbyists for the counties, it's the lobbyists for the appraisal districts. The same people are coming time and time again. And so what we need are more people like yourself that could come to Austin and to face up to a committee, make a difference. Yes.
This past year, my house, which is about 5 miles out of town, on a homestead, they can go up 10% per year.
On the assessed value.
I have done no improvements to my house and got hit with a full 10% this year. My property value, not counting the homestead, was less than 2 acres and went up 79%. It went up to over $48,000 this year.
On your market value?
Yes. 79%.
So that's the situation that we have. There's a lack.
I don't understand. Well, I do. I guess it's Gillespie County doing it because I've done no improvements to my house. Why do they have to hit us with the full 10%? No matter what you do, it seems like they hit us with the max.
The reasoning behind what they're doing is that they sit down and take certain sales, take certain things, figure it in, and they come up with an answer. The only thing that we must do, we must protest each and every year.
Oh, I have.
We have to do that. Do you have a question?
Well, I was just going to comment. I bought raw land, and it increased 246% from 1 year to the next. It's not in Gillespie, Kendall County, but still, my property is appraised at $8,500 an acre, while property contiguous and adjacent to me ranges from $62 an acre to $4,400 an acre. And I have raw land.
You're living around Wall County.
Well, I know, but this is, I'm willing to talk to you about going to Austin because this is just heinous. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, these stories, you hear them again and again and again and again. I got an email. We're staying at the Hangar Hotel out here, and I got an email from Houston Hooks Airport where there's some people that have put houses there alongside the runway of Hooks, and they're saying about the same story. Same size property built at the same time. They're just all over the place.
There's just no rhyme or reason.
No.
And it goes back to you saying there's over 4,000 different people interpreting the law.
Other states, let me say this, and I don't say that this is the thing to do immediately, but other states make it a criminal penalty for an appraiser to do things that are not explainable. That is going around in New York and a few places are in that category. Yes.
Is there a way we could find out online or at the appraisal office to find out what properties
they use to compare your property to? You know, how did they come up with
We made a proposal this last 2 weeks that when they send out the notice of appraisal, the 2519, now not the 2519L, but the 2519, they've noticed your property, that they send you 3 comps. You see? Because the appraisal is like Harris County, they could send out 200 comps. You know?
Well, 3 would be good, but where can I find out what those 3 are?
Well, they would have to, they have to send you all information, but they may have, in that group, they may have 200 or 300. What I'm saying is, I think they ought to have to limit it to 3 comps for homeowners. I think that's very reasonable. We're trying to get that pushed through. Yes.
Coach, I think that when you appeal, only then you see the cost.
Say again?
I think in this county, only when you appeal can you see the cost. I don't think you can go in and say, what's your methodology? I think you have to appeal, and then they'll give you the cost at that time.
Well, what happens, they've changed that law some to protect the multiple listing thing, and that's the end of the discussion, whether that's going to stick or not. But what I'm saying, when you do protest, they can only give you 3 comps. They can't give you 65 properties for you to try to go and search around. Yes.
I did file that protest. You have to do it in writing. They have to respond within 10 days. So anybody that wants to do it, you got to July the 11th to do so.
14 days to give you your evidence.
You can do it verbally. The best thing to do what I did. I wrote a formal letter requesting all this. Go in there, have them make copies of it, have them stamped received, and they have 10 days to respond.
And they have to give you the formulas and that and everything you need.
Coach, under that House bill, you talk about House Bill 201.
Yes.
They require under that bill as of today, right now, to give you the data that the appraisal is based on. What did you just go down to the appraisal office and submit a written request saying under House Bill 201, I want to know what the basis of my appraisal is?
Correct.
That's all you have to do. That's law right now.
That is the law, yes.
Okay. Now, isn't there, you've been through that process now? Is there benefit to that, you believe?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you have something to, you have some proof.
Okay.
So
that's 14 days prior to the date they set up for
you have to request it 15 days and give them 14 days to respond.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
I may get in trouble with my fellow realtors, but I think it would also be good is if you know somebody, get them to give you a comp. I've told several people that have called me that, no, your house would sell for that. You don't have a case. But the majority, I have plenty of comps to show that that's not what property's selling for. And I think, if you know somebody, we're a pretty friendly group here in Gillespie County. I think somebody would help you.
What's your name?
Yes, right here.
You can get all kinds of comps from the appraisal office. If you request it, they'll give you a whole big printout of it. And realtors are also a good source. But in my opinion, the more data that you can get to show that your property is not comparable to the comps that the appraisal office used, you have a better chance of winning your fight with
Okay, let's get them up here.
You talk a little bit about protest based on unequal inequality.
Yes, for
How
sure.
do you go about making it?
Initially, the unequal protest required you to go out and get an independent appraisal of a property before you could build a ratio. But the law was changed so that you can take appraised values and make the adjustments to the comparable properties. It's a situation that's less expensive, but you need to build a ratio. 3 is the minimum, but usually 5 or something like that, 7 properties would be good. But you go at market value first, establish market value, and then you reduce to unequal value. And you have to build a ratio study out of the actual properties that are involved in the sample. You get a property that has similar characteristics to your property, and it's appraised here. And you got another one down here and one up here. Well, you take the median. It's the midpoint, not the average.
Okay, I have a comment about that, because when I went to protest mine, I actually went and took pictures of all the houses in the front to compare your rock, your brick. I'm asbestos siding, you know, they have new windows, I don't. I mean, I did the whole thing. And their question to me was, have you seen the insides of these homes? And I said, are you kidding me? I'm going to knock on every door and say, can I take pictures? I mean, I was at the point where I was like, you've got to be kidding. You want me to tell you what the inside of everybody's house looks like? I don't think I can do that.
Don't let them in.
I tell you, I'm not sure any more ideas, any more questions, but I know it's getting warm in here. I have the fight song I want to share with you on the end. All right, back in the back there.
Now, I have one thing to say. Last year I protested my taxes, okay? And I sent it in, I did all my homework and everything else. The day before the hearing, this guy calls me on the phone from the assessor's office, and he says, it's kind of like, let's make a deal time. And he said, he says, I've been looking at your taxes. He says that we overshot the mark. That's what he said. He says that if I take $15,000 off of the assessed valuation, would you be happy and consent to that? And I did, thinking next year I'm going to give him again. So it pays to protest your taxes, because what happened is, from what I understand, they don't have time down there to have all of us come in there and protest their taxes. They got to do something. What we can do is send them a message.
That's what you need to do, yeah.
Spread the word.
Right. We have a request for a young lady for an important announcement.
Well, I know that some of you may need to leave, and Coach is going to be here for a while, so just keep answering questions. We're hoping to meet again next Thursday night at 6 o'clock. Right now, the Ag Building, y'all know where that is, out on Highway 16, right off there. That is on
16 North
Frederick Road. On Friedrich Road. Off of 16, or Frederick Road, sorry. But we will put some information on the radio and in the paper again, but I wanted to let you know if you have to, or if anybody has to leave. Like the gentleman said, the best thing to do is keep your options open. You can flip your appraisal over and fill it out. It's real easy. Send in your protest and then decide what you're going to do at that point, that your options are open. I also suggest that you go down and sit in on the public ARB hearings. Give you a lot of good information, you get a feel for it. You'll see who's on the ARB board.
When is that?
I believe the hearing
will start tomorrow. There's going to be council appraisal coming in dealing with some large accounts, and you have the right to go into any ARB hearing you want. And the important note about that, I believe on the We the People you'll see an account. Check to see if that account's on the back page there of ExxonMobil. Yeah. look at the back page of We the People. There represents one account. How much are y'all paying for gas up here? All right. So this is an account that ExxonMobil went into a hearing, and they had 3 tax agents. I got the tape, as you can see. They said we're overappraised and we're unequal. The chairman says of the ARB, do you want to present any evidence? No. Capital Appraisal, John Neely, represented the district, Harris County. And he who set the initial value at 2.6 billion dropped it to 1.8. And then, at the close of the hearing, the ExxonMobil people said, we're going to get this lowered later and more. And they did. They dropped it to 1.6 billion. I haven't found out how it happened yet. But that's the type of situation we really need to look into and know what's happening. Okay.
Apparently have a home house, for example, why did the tax assessment value increase on the house when no improvements have been made? Not on the land.
Well, a house is like a guessing game, and that's the way they put the numbers down, so you really can't tell. Is it true that the new reappraisal was hired after he was fired from Kerber for making the appraisal too high? I have no idea. All our taxes for people 65 older were supposed to be frozen several years ago. School taxes are. This new appraisal means we pay more taxes with property appraisals up 30 to 50%. Your school dollar amount is frozen, of course, but your other taxes can go up.
For those of you that want to file a protest, never done it before, don't be intimidated by it. All you have to do on step 4, you don't have to have your evidence, you don't have to give it to them. I just put in evidence will be presented that supports the reasons checked above in step 3. Get your protest filed, then you can get your data together. Otherwise you're going to procrastinate and not do it.
So what do you put in step 4?
Okay, we got another question over here.
The evidence will be presented.
The same way.
Was that still 3211?
HB 3211.
So it is not strictly on the current sale value of the property.
You've got to build a model, and then you've got to calibrate the model and check the characteristics of each property, and then you appraise. Now, have you seen the song there on the card here? Our fight song? Here's how it goes. From the secret rooms of the castle to the last on the Capitol's top, we will fight for fair appraisal in the cans and in the court. First to fight for the rights of the 40 and to keep your money safe. We are proud to claim the title of the Equal Texas range. Another way. From the kitchens of the home we love to our families' future revive, we will fight for equal uniform in our clubs and our churches. First to speak for truth and justice, and to keep our land secure. We are proud to claim the title of the new Texas Rangers. learn the law. Look on the website and keep in touch.